Hey mamas, it is my third attempt at making this video, so I'm hoping I don't get interrupted. I am trying to talk to you all today about my natural birth with June. I know I've talked about natural birth in general and my birth plan, but I wanted to actually tell you about June's birth story. So, she's my third daughter in 3 years. She was born almost 3 years to the date of when our oldest was born. We have 3 girls, and I'm losing my train of thought. Mom brain. Oh, okay. With my first 2 deliveries, Sophia and Violet, they were both induced labor, and I had episiotomies with both of them. I was induced because of all the pelvic pain I was experiencing, and I would go to my OB and be like, please take these babies out. I know they're ready. I'm just done. I can't go anymore. And so I was induced at 40 weeks with my first and 39 weeks with my second. Like I said, I had episiotomies with both of them. The first one was no big deal. Second one was pretty big. Her cord was around her neck, so they had to go in and unravel that before she was all the way out, and they had to do quite a bit of cutting and just made my pelvic issues worse. So whenever I found out I was expecting for the third time, I was like, I'm gonna end up in a wheelchair. I cannot make it through this pregnancy with all this pelvic pain that I have. With all my pregnancies, I've been on painkillers. It's really miserable, and it clears up a lot after delivery, but during pregnancy it's awful, and most of the problems I have are from pregnancy, not from delivery. So I finally found a pelvic floor specialist, and she works with a team of pelvic floor therapists. I started going to weekly appointments, and of course, once I got in the swing of things, my biggest questions were like, how do I deliver this baby without doing more damage? Like, what can I do to help myself? And although most of the problems are from pregnancy, birth puts a lot of strain on the area that I'm having issues. So their first thing was natural delivery, and not because of a lot of the reasons that would probably first pop into your head, but just to get you off your back, allow gravity to do some of the work and take some of the strain off of those muscles, and allow you to kind of control how hard you're pushing. So my first thought was no. My second thought was no. My third thought was no. Like, I am not doing this. I know how bad birth was with an epidural. Like, this is not even being considered. I cried to my husband. I was like, there's no way we're getting this baby out. I'm getting a C-section. I actually looked into a C-section, and my therapist and my doctors agreed that would do probably more harm than good, because I'd be cutting into these muscles that I'm already having so many issues with. And June's down here in her seat in the floor. But that I would just be making things weaker than they already are. So we scratched that off the table. And I still was just like in this panic. Like, I'm not one of those moms. I am not getting this baby out without drugs. I want all the drugs. I've been through months of pain. I want the drugs. So anyways, I calmed down, started doing a little Googling, my best friend Google. And then I started talking to my mom friends who I knew had planned natural deliveries. You're still a trooper if you have a natural delivery that isn't planned, but I needed to know the prep work part because I was planning a natural delivery. So that's where I started. They were all great. They recommended some really great books. I started doing my own research. I had really good conversations with my doctor. And I got myself mentally prepared for what I was going to go through emotionally and what my body was going to do physically. I knew how to relay that to Richard. I watched birth videos on YouTube. I really dug in. I was like, my mindset has to be that I'm doing this for my own health. So that's what I did. And when the time came, things went just like the book said it would for the most part. My water broke at 37 and a half weeks. Prior to that, at about 36 and a half weeks, I started having prodromal labor. So I was basically in early labor for a week, but nothing was happening. I was dilating very little, effacing very little, but I had all the symptoms of labor, and it was awful. I spent the whole week in the bathtub and in my bed and crying to my husband. Oh no. Oh no. You want me to hold you? Hang on just a second. Okay. Here's the sweet little baby we're talking about. Hi. I'm hoping that I can just get through this video because, like I said, I've tried 3 times already. And I really know for me, sometimes I want to read, but a lot of times I just want to listen and get the information quick, so I'm trying to hurry through this. Anyway, my water broke at 37 and a half weeks. We happened to be in the middle of a flood in our area, so my husband had conveniently stayed home from work that day because there was concerns if he went to work that he wouldn't be able to get back across the river. And I was like, look, I've been in this like pre-labor for a week now. You are not getting stuck anywhere because our hospital is an hour and a half away. And speaking of hospitals, if you go to have a natural delivery in a hospital, you're already like setting yourself up for a big challenge that you wouldn't have if you were using a birthing center or a midwife or doing a home birth. Those things weren't in the cards for us this time, and I felt really nervous about changing providers. Our doctor delivered all 3 of our babies. He's a family friend, and he's really a nice guy. He probably wasn't the best candidate for natural delivery, and he's delivered babies naturally, but that's just, he's a doctor. He's trained in medicine and surgery and not necessarily natural delivery. So I knew that going into it that the hospital wasn't necessarily the best place for it, and we were going to have to be firm with what we wanted if we were going to be successful. Although, if I could pick the way I would give birth, I would give birth at home. I think that's so neat. I wish that was an option for us, but we're just too far away from a hospital, and with my issues, it's just not a good idea probably. But anyway, so I ended up going into labor. I swear I mentally, like, did it kind of. Like, I woke up that day and I was like, it would be a good day to have a baby. Richard's home. Like, I just need God to send me a sign that, you know, like my water breaking or something. So I know that this is the real deal because I had already been to labor and delivery once with this pre-labor and been sent home, and I sat there the whole night just in agony, and they wouldn't do anything for me because I was only 36 and a half weeks. So my doctor was like, well, it's your 3rd baby and they're all really close together. I won't do anything to stop your labor, but I can't do anything to speed it up. So I just sat there in this limbo mode overnight, and I was just exhausted and having contractions all night long and frustrated and so tired and sick to my stomach and ugh. So anyways, I was just laying there and I was like, please let this be the real deal. I like shaved my legs, painted my nails, like something in my head. I knew that this was the day, but I didn't have any clear signs, and I actually was feeling a little better than I had been feeling. So Richard was home. We got our toddlers down for nap time, and I was like, I'm gonna lay down and take a nap. So I just laid there and I like started praying some more, and boom, my water broke, and it was like the real deal. And I had my water broke with my inductions, but never on my own at home. So I told my husband, I was like, my water just broke. Like, this is it. We're going to have her. And she was a few weeks early, which was awesome because I'm just not the best pregnant person. I'm in too much pain. I'm sick at the beginning, and it's just not my thing. I love our babies. I wish pregnancy agreed with me, but it doesn't. So he was like, what do we do? I'm like, well, first you need to calm down. What just happened to all the homework we did? We know this baby isn't going to just fly out. Like, it's going to be fine. So we got Richard's brother and sister-in-law here to watch the toddlers, and finished packing our bags, took our time, and Richard like took the car seats out of the vehicle, and we got for the toddlers, got the other car seat in the vehicle, and we headed off to St. Louis. Not realizing that they were shutting down all the highways because of the flood. So we barely got into St. Louis on our like normal route. An hour after we got into St. Louis, they shut the highway down. And by like, you know, like as we were starting to get in closer to this like city, my contractions had picked up a little. And we got stuck in this huge traffic jam because everybody was trying to get through before they shut the highway down. And Richard's like, what if we're stuck here? And I'm like, we're not going to be stuck here. It's fine. So we get to the hospital, and if you read about natural labor, your labor kind of stalls when you get into an uncomfortable environment. And I thought I'd be better, like, at the same hospital that I delivered the other girls, and I was familiar with the place and where we were going and my doctor and all that. But still, like, just getting out of the vehicle and, like, getting to the hospital and realizing, like, this is really happening. My contractions stalled. Nothing was really going on. Like, I was having contractions, but they weren't painful. And so anyways, we get there, we get checked in. They hook me up to the monitor for a little bit. And so immediately I was like, I don't want to be on this monitor. I don't want an IV. You know, I want to be in my own clothes if I want to be. I want to eat. I want to drink. We had to go through, you know, this whole list with them. They had to check everything with my doctor. And so by the time we got all that settled, my doctor came in, said a prayer with us, asked how I was feeling. And I was like, I'm good right now. You know, we're going to go walk, see if we can get things to pick up a little bit. And so we walked a couple laps. He came back in, and already I was like, yeah, things are already picking up. And like, I didn't realize how fast they were going to pick up, because this was the first time I had done labor on my own. It was the first time my water had broke on its own. I didn't know my timeline for events, and I also knew this was my third baby really close together. Like, my body knew what it was going to do, but I had never done it on my own. So the biggest thing with natural labor, I think for me anyways, is I had to release to that pain. Like, I had to mentally say, this pain is okay, there is a purpose for it. Like, I have to deal with this pain to have a baby. And the pain was a lot more manageable than my Pitocin inductions. With both my inductions, I went into it with the mindset, if I can make it through this without medicine, I'm not going to get the medicine. Like, I would like to experience birth fully. But I wasn't able to. And Pitocin contractions are so right on top of each other, it's miserable. And you're stuck in bed. You have cords hooked up to you. You have things beeping. You know, you have these monitors. So my doctor had agreed to monitoring 15 minutes out of the hour, and I was fine with that. So that was the plan. We never even got that far. Pretty quickly, I was like, I want to get in the shower. You know, my back really hurt, and I was tired, and it's cold in hospitals. So I got in the shower, and then, like, things really picked up, and I really had to start focusing through my contractions. They were painful, but I got a break. So that makes such a huge difference. If you know you have 45 seconds of pain and you get 2 minutes off, or whatever pattern you're into, that's, like, really great. And so then I would look up at Richard and be like, I'm okay, like, I'm doing this, you know. And I would have to kind of, like, say affirmations to myself, but to him, like, I wanted to let him know that I was okay, because he kind of looked like, this is really, I'm sure it was hard for him to watch me be in pain, I guess. So anyways, like, in the shower, and then things started to really pick up, and it was like my contractions were really back to back to back. And I finally told Richard, I'm like, I want them to check me, which a lot of people will say not to do because it can discourage you. And that's exactly what happened to me. But I also think it kind of worked in my favor. Anyway, so, and we're talking, this is happening over, like, we got there at like 6, and she was born at 10. So when I had them check me, I have been laboring for about 3 hours of, like, actual labor. 2.5, because I walked and stuff first. So probably about 2.5 hours of, like, real labor. So she comes in, she checks me, and she's like, you're only at a 6. I was like, get me the epidural. I just looked at Richard. I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. Like, till I get to a 10. Ain't happening. And, like, I had read in the books, when you feel like you're about to give up, you're really close. And I had told Richard that. I'm like, if I decide I want to give up, like, I'm probably really close. But then I had just had her tell me I'm still at a 6. So I knew I had a ways to go. So I get back in the shower, and, like, then I got on the toilet, and then I got in the shower, got on the toilet, and I was like, Richard, I think I have to push. And it was, like, literally a minute and a half after she left the room. And so I just dropped to all fours and pushed, because that's what I felt like I had to do. And that is where I messed up. The second I felt the urge to push, like, everything that I had told myself about why this needed to happen, and I needed to do things slow and let my body's contractions push the baby down instead of me pushing, I forgot about all of it, because I knew if I pushed, I'd be done. And so I started pushing, and then they were like, you need to get back to the bed. Like, we don't know. We need to check you again. And I had just got there, and this walk to this bed felt like it took so long. Like, it was so hard to get back up there and get back on the bed. And they checked me and they're like, her head's right there. So I went from a 6 to a 10 in like 3 or 4 minutes. It was like really fast. So they're trying to page the floor doctor. They're trying to call my doctor. My doctor was coming from his house in the flood traffic. So he was having a terrible time getting there. I got up on the bed on all fours, and in 3 or 4 pushes, she was out. That was it. It was done. The floor doctor never made it to the room. Richard and my nurse delivered her. And so it was really fast. But unfortunately, my speedy pushing caused me to tear forward. So I tore forward through my clitoris and my urethra. And they didn't realize it at the time. There was so much chaos. The room was not set up for birth. There was not a spot for baby. There were no other nurses in the room. Everybody had to get there and kind of assemble. So we just have this baby there. Nobody's like knowing what to do. And I'm just sitting there on all fours because I'm starting to realize like I am in major pain. Something's wrong. And I'm like telling Richard something's wrong. I'm telling the nurses. Like the doctor's in there trying to clamp the cord and get the baby unattached from me. And the second he dropped the cord with the clamp and the scissors, I was like, oh, I just lost it. Like I was shaking. I was crying. I was still on all fours. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. And that was the weird part about delivering on all fours. You know, my other labors, I was laying on my back so I could see everything that was going on. Well, I had my face to the wall and everybody was behind me, so I had no clue what was going on in the room. All I knew is that I was in major freaking pain. So the nurses are like, well, we'll get you some Percocets. So they give me 2 Percocet. And I'm like, no, I'm in pain. Like, I need something now. So then they gave me Stadol. And that didn't work. So they gave me morphine. And we're all waiting for my doctor to get there. And the floor doctor is just kind of looking at me. Like, doesn't know what's wrong. And no one can touch me to, like, examine me because I'm in so much pain. I'm freaking out. They finally get me turned over. And I'm just, like, laying there trembling. They try to hand me the baby. And I'm like, I do not want her. Give her to Richard. I told Richard, take your shirt off and take her. I don't want her. Like, I got to figure out what's going on with me. And so my doctor got there and they decided to give me more morphine, and then they just decided to call in the anesthesiologist and give me an epidural and do the spinal or whatever they did. And so then I'm like totally drugged. So I just went through all this work to have this natural delivery, and then I'm pumped full of drugs. And please don't let this deter you from natural delivery. I knew, because I have a lot of scar tissue down there and I have pelvic issues, that I needed to slow things down. But my coach and I were so caught up in how fast everything was happening that we just forgot that that was the plan. And in a way, I did it to myself. I should have slowed down and done my original plan. And that's why I really regret not having a doula who would have not been so emotionally caught up and would have been able to remind me to let gravity and my contractions do their job and to just kind of work through that. But instead, my baby shot out like a cannon. And anyways, my doctor got there, figured out what was going on. He had to go, like, make sure I didn't tear inside, and then realized I tore forward. And so that was a ton of stitching. And I ended up being, like, having an epidural and being cathed for 24 hours. And that was pretty miserable. The healing from that was not fun. But everything healed and it's all fine. And I'm not scared to the point that I won't have another baby. But, yeah, it was interesting. But natural birth, the birth process, I feel like with the induced labors that I had, I walked away feeling empty, like I missed part of the experience. Not that I didn't birth my babies. I very much did, and I did push and whatever, but I felt like something was missing. And this time I walked away very satisfied that I experienced it all, that I mentally did the work, I guess. And that might not be for everybody. But I think a lot of times birth gets the reputation of being so painful and so scary, and it is painful, but it's also a pain that you're designed to endure. And I think my natural deliveries were less painful than my induced deliveries, for sure. So anyways, that's what I want to leave you guys with. It was very interesting between the flooding and the tearing and just how fast everything went. We had no clue that she would be there so quickly, but she's wonderful and she's hungry, so I'm going to go feed her. And thank you guys for listening in. I'll talk to you next time. If you like my content, Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That really helps me out a lot. And, this channel will be full of just stuff about being a mom, not just birth. I want to really talk about different aspects of being a mom, but I want to kind of go in order. So birth is where we're starting. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.